Hi guys, it's Sunday night and it's rant time. Well, not rant, it's what's becoming my regular Sunday thing. But I thought I'd do something a little bit different this week. I got a message from somebody asking about Archery. Somebody I've known for quite a long time. He's been watching my videos and he's sort of interested. But he's asked a question, which I think is quite a good question. So I thought I'd do something about it. And what he says is this. Do I have time for archery? The more I look into it, the more overwhelming it seems. And before I jump in and spend money, I'd need to know if a dad of two crazy kids, crazy boys he says, who works full time, would have the time to get good at it, or at least make it a hobby. That's a fair question. So I thought I'd have a go at answering. Right, so full-time dad, and he works hard. I know him as well. Actually, he's a hard grafter. He loves his kids. Because his boy's crazy, he's crazy as well. But he does make a good point. Archery can be quite time consuming if you let it, if you want it to be. I mean, if your aim is to become a world-class competitive shooter, you're going to have to practice 5, 6, 7 hours a day. But not everybody can do that. And I'd say the vast majority of people can't do that. The vast majority of archers want to do it as a hobby, which in itself can be quite time consuming, but it doesn't have to be. And it depends what you want to get out of it. Now, as a family man with 2 young boys and his wife, his missus, it's entirely, you could make a family hobby out of it. For instance, youngsters, most of the archery clubs in the UK tend to say that they don't like children under 8. However, some clubs do take kids as young as 6. It depends on the level of supervision that the kids are going to have. So if you've got 1 adult and 2 kids going along who are both under 8-year-old, it might be a bit problematic. However, if mum and dad are there and the 2 kids are there, and you make it into a family thing, a lot of clubs would be quite happy, and you might even be able to persuade them to take the young'uns a little bit younger. The only problem you will find is that most indoor shooting is done at 20 metres. Now, if you've got young kids, 6, 7, 8-year-old, the power of the bows that they are going to be able to use, they're going to have problems reaching those sort of distances. I mean, if you're a 6-year-old, you might only be shooting something that's maybe 8 or 9 pound in draw weight, and it may be a little bit problematic and maybe a bit of a problem to actually reach those sort of ranges. And clubs don't like to reduce ranges too much, because you won't be the only people shooting on that target, on that boss. However, they do, once you get into the summer, they do tend to put targets specifically for the youngsters off to one side at closer ranges. And it's a fulfilling hobby for an entire family to take part in. I think it's doable. Now, in terms of working archery in around work patterns and things like that, especially if you work shifts, and if I remember rightly, Eric does. The good thing about the area we're in, and it's probably the same in most areas, if you've got 2 or 3 clubs, we're lucky, I think we've got about 6 clubs in our area. Apart from weekends, they all tend to have a different evening session. For instance, the 2 that I'm looking at, which is Hartlepool and Norton. Hartlepool meet on a Tuesday and Norton meet on a Wednesday. There's 2 clubs in Middlesbrough that meet on Mondays, which is a bit awkward. But there's another club in Stockton that meets on Thursdays. So if need be, once you're a member of you've joined one club, and once you're a full member of Archery GB, you can go to any club in the country. And most of the time it is literally just getting in touch on Facebook or by phone, sending an email saying, look, I'd like to come along on this day, and just no club is going to turn you down unless it's a competition evening, or a competition day, like a club competition. So once you're not a member of Archery GB, which you automatically get once you join a club, once you become a full-time member, you can go to any club you like. So even if you're working away, take your archery gear with you, and you can go to find a local club and go and do a bit of practice. In terms of cost, initially, if you've got a family getting involved, it could be a little bit expensive. However, you shouldn't have to pay more than £100 for an adult kit to get an adult started. I mean, for Christmas this year, I bought my son and his girlfriend a set each. I bought her a horsebow, a full horsebow kit, and I bought him like a target kit, £100 each. Junior kits you can get for as little as £40–50, even less, and they are usable. You can buy family kits which include things like targets, 2 or 3 bows, arrows to go with them in fairly low poundage, so you can get the kids involved for less than £100. You can get them on Amazon, you can get them on Quick's Archery, you can get them at Merlin Archery. Full family starter kits including 2 bows, 6 to 10 arrows, target, tabs, finger tabs, gloves, braces for your arms, everything for less than £100. So even if you can't get into a club, you can do some shooting in the back garden, and you don't need a great deal of space, to be honest, especially for the little ones. The only thing I would say is you've got to be careful about safety, because even a low-powered bow of about £10 can fling an arrow 50–60 feet without too much hassle. So that's the only thing you've got to... So basically, you set the target up in front of the house, so that if the kids are going to miss, they're going to hit your house and they're not going to go out of the garden. That's the only thing I'd say about getting kids involved in archery. But you'll also find most clubs do junior taster sessions as well for the little ones, 8, 10, 11, 12-year-olds. And I think it's well worth looking into. If you can do it as a family, so much the better. Now, in terms of what you want to get out of it as a hobby, has it got a... Well, he said something else as well. Whoops. Which I thought was quite interesting, actually. He says, in short, can an ancient weapon fit into modern day life? I think that's quite and that could be quite an interesting topic in itself, actually. Yes, it can. And why do I say that? Well, for one simple reason, that it does already. Now, if you consider, I've mentioned this in other videos before, they've recently found evidence that takes archery back 60,000 years. Now, I can't think of any other... what's the word? Any other activity that human beings have done which has lasted so long. I mean, yes, there are things, but I don't mean, like, for instance, fishing, hunting, all that sort of stuff. Food gathering has lasted so long. But there's not many other activities that have reinvented themselves into something new. For instance, fishing is always been about catching food. Hunting, it's always been about catching food. Gardening, it's always about, or used to be, always about food. Or potentially about food. Archery isn't so much anymore. It's reinvented itself into a pastime, into a hobby. For the vast majority of people, yes, there are bow hunters out there, but the vast majority of people who follow and practice archery, it's all about hitting a target. It's all about getting out, doing something interesting, meeting interesting people of a like mind and having fun. And that's the main thing. So yes, I do think it has a place in modern world and in modern life. And there's another aspect to it as well. You can plink in your back garden to your heart's content and just mess about. Or you can treat it a little bit more seriously. And I'm not talking about competing. I'm on about in terms of the philosophy of archery. You can treat it as a martial art. You can practice it as a martial art, as a form of focus. You can even treat it as a form of keep fit, because it can be quite exertion intensive in terms of the amount of shooting you can do. For instance, if you decide you're going to, well, an ordinary club night at a club is going to be on average 2 hours. During that 2 hours, you probably shoot 100 to 150 shots. You might not realise it, that you've fired that many, unless it's really, really busy, which will bring the shot count down. You're going to be firing in those 2 hours 100 to 150 shots. Now, if you consider that the average bow has a draw weight of 30 pounds, so you're pulling 30 pounds, and depending on how you draw, you're basically pulling 15 pounds with each arm. And that's a lot of repetitions. That's 100 repetitions. That's a workout on the weights in the gym. And you're not just exercising your arms. You're exercising your back and your shoulders and your lower abdomen and your thighs as well. It's a good workout. You might not realise it's a good workout, but believe me, it is. And from the focusing point of view, there's nothing focuses the mind, if you wanted to, quite like trying to hit a fairly small target, the size of a CD, with a very small object at 20, 50, 70 meters. So there you go. So that's just my way of answering that question for Eric. Yes, I do believe it has a place in modern life. And yes, I do believe that a family man with 2 kids can take part and enjoy it. And I think the kids can as well. And if you can get the missus involved also, so much the better. But hunt around. Like I said, you will find most areas have 2 or 3 clubs within driving distance. And most clubs will interact with each other and cooperate with each other and have weekday shooting sessions that don't clash too much, which allows the people who want to do shooting every single day to move from club to club to club to club. Like there was one young lad in the club that I was involved in. I think his name was David, I'm not sure. But he wanted to shoot compound bow competitively. And he was good. His dad was involved, but his dad was mainly about... he was his coach, basically. His dad was his personal coach. His dad was an experienced shooter, but his dad maintained all his equipment, all that sort of stuff. And this young lad just came along. But they went to 3 or 4 clubs each week. And then they spent the entire... and then they went to one club on a Saturday and spent the entire day shooting. And went to a club on a Sunday and spent an entire day shooting. Now, I can't remember his name properly, otherwise I would have checked up to see what he's actually doing, whether he's actually competing or not at the moment. But again, if you want to, you can shoot every day. There's usually enough clubs around. And even if you've got a good enough back garden, you can usually shoot every day. And you can involve the kids as well. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting, and I hope Eric finds that as a decent answer to his question. If any of you have got any questions that you would like my opinion on, please put them down in the comments, things like that. This one came through Messenger from a guy I know, so I just thought I'd chuck it in there and give my 2 penneth worth. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. Hope maybe found it a bit of value. And we'll talk again soon. Cheers, guys.